quickly, knowledge mobilization is about taking the research, the professional learning that you're doing out of the classroom, out of the colloquium, out of the seminar, out of journal articles, and in front of and under the eyes and into the hearts and minds of those people that could stand to gain the most from exposure to it, be it a sector of the public, section of the public that might be implicated, potential funders, and even potential employers. And so it's really about learning how to create relatable, accessible messages out of what you're up to and demonstrating the stake, maybe narratively, of your research so that you can inspire a stake in others. And so we're going to be talking about 3 initiatives today. Images of Research, Dr. Sasha Mullally. The 3-minute thesis, colloquially known as 3MT, Dr. Matt Rogers, and then I'll pick it up at the end to speak about the Speakeasy challenge. I'll leave it to Sasha to start.
Okay. I'm delighted to be with you all today to talk about visualizing research. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Sasha Mullally. I'm a professor in the Department of Historical Studies, and I am an associate dean in the School of Graduate Studies. And I would like to begin by just observing that we use data visualization of all kinds, still and moving, to quickly convey and effectively convey the essence of complex ideas. We do this all the time, and we do it increasingly regularly, right? So every lecture that you give is accompanied by a PowerPoint slide deck, which hopefully doesn't just contain the text of the words that you're delivering to your audience. Hopefully it's also populated with intentionally selected imagery. If you are giving a pitch to a donor or a funder, you're often making your pitch accompanied by slides. The 3-minute thesis competition that my colleague Matt Rogers is going to speak to later on is accompanied by a still image. And so the intentional selection, manipulation, and creation of visual imagery is an increasingly important part of the research enterprise, especially when you want to communicate to non-experts, especially when you want to communicate to people outside your area of expertise. And I think we can all be motivated by the fact that knowledge can be beautiful. And we should all intentionally think about how we can convey with a single image some complex ideas that will, or select an image that will complement, rather, some of the complex ideas that we bring forth in our original research at the university. Sometimes we struggle to explain what we're doing in graduate school. Sometimes our family members are a little bit intrigued but not entirely comprehending of the type of research that we do. That's because by the time you get to graduate school, you've gone so deeply into a discipline that you start to, your language changes because you've adopted the nomenclature and the jargon of the particular discipline in question. So it becomes increasingly difficult to speak outside of that discipline. Additionally, you start reading in more and more specialized ways so that your, all of the media that you consume tends to be targeted and focused in on your area of passion, right? And this is an important part of graduate education. But then a moment comes when you have to start communicating outside of that discipline again. Maybe to non-cognate, maybe you're participating in interdisciplinary research, maybe you are, as I've mentioned, sort of trying to reach out to members of the general public to convey the importance of your ideas. We have the Images of Research competition to help focus attention on one element of that extra engagement outside of your disciplinary area of expertise. Images of Research is something that we created 4 years ago. It was Andrea Rulick's idea, because Andrea comes from the University of Illinois, the university that originated the first Image of Research competition. I think it was about a decade ago. Andrea, is that right?
That feels right.
Yeah, it was approximately a decade ago. They called it Image of Research, and it was a huge success, even the first year that they ran it. It immediately got picked up by universities, particularly in the Midwest, and also across the border in Canada, in Calgary, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Because it was trademarked, they called it Images of Research, and so now most universities, like UNB, have an Images of Research competition that tries to do the same thing. So we create an opportunity for people to get together to talk about what do you do to select or create a meaningful image, and then we give you prizes. The School of Graduate Studies, right from the get-go, has had a wonderful collaboration with the Harriet Irving Library Research Commons in launching this competition. And it falls to me to kind of introduce you to some of the things that you should think about if you're going to participate in Images of Research this year. Now, one of the touchstones that I personally use when I try and come up with pitches of all kinds, and this is something that I think about when I create textual pitches, you know, if I'm trying to convey something complex outside of my area of expertise to students, if I'm making a public presentation, I really like this book, Made to Stick. This is a book that was popularized about 5 or 6 years ago. It's gone through several editions. It's a New York Times bestseller. And there's a lot, if you Google these folks, they have a lot of multimedia content online that you can review, and it's often used in training for 3MT pitches, but I find the idea is really helpful for Images of Research as well. And they have this, this template or this rubric of success for those of us who want to convey complex ideas to the general public. And there's some things they argue that make an idea, no matter how complex, stick with the public. So these 6 components are things that we should think about, and I'd like you to try and remember them, because I'm going to show you some images and we'll see how they relate to these 6 items of the rubric of success. Images that tend to stick with people, images and ideas that tend to stick with people, first of all, are conveyed in a very simple manner. So you should always think about, without dumbing down what you want to say, think about the simple essence of the message that you want to convey. Try and distill it in 1 or 2 sentences. This takes work. It's not something that happens, you know, it's not something you can generally do off the top of your head. But if you can simplify the essence of what you're trying to communicate, if you frame it in a way that you would explain it to a child, let's say, or, you know, explain it to someone who is not just a non-expert, but maybe just someone very young, then that will help you distill the heart of your message into something that's easily mappable onto a wide variety of people's sort of mental maps and understanding. Once you simplify your image, you want to hit them with what is sort of unexpected or new or novel or, something that is really new, just one sec, about what it is you're trying to add to the knowledge, add to your research, the research universe. But you should concretize it. People tend to relate to ideas that have an impact or relate to their everyday experience. If possible, this is also a way that you can sell your idea. Now, credibility is not something that we need to worry about too much in this room because you're working at a university and your institutional affiliation gives you a built-in credibility. But what I've seen students do, what I've seen faculty members do, what I've seen knowledge creators do from a wide variety of university sectors is sometimes they'll refer to the university research center that they're affiliated with. And you're not just a student, but you're a graduate student. And that gives you more credibility than an undergraduate because you're doing specialized research. So lean into that, lean into your expertise. And here we're coming into 2 components of sticky ideas that I find particularly important. Any kind of image that you portray or any kind of idea that you're trying to communicate, if you can have an emotional hook, if you can inspire something affective in your audience, then people are more likely to remember it, and they are more likely to be swayed by the argument around it. And if you can narrate it in a way that is that links it to a storytelling tradition, then that is also very easy for people to uptake. And so an image, like a story, is something that, you know, is something that evokes an imaginative narration, is something that is going to be more sticky than something that doesn't, right? Let's do a little exercise. And let's ask ourselves, I'm going to show you some images that won the Images of Research competition in years previous. And I'd like us to think back to the 6 points of the rubric to see what kind of emotion is being elicited. Is this prompting a story in your mind? Are there other elements of the rubric that are being activated? And we'll see if we can come up with a rationale as to why these images won prizes in past year's competitions. So just take this in. And I'll put the descriptor beside it. So the Images of Research competition, of course, is all about the image, but it's also, it enables you to put together, or it allows you to put together, I think it's a 200-word explication, snappy title, 200-word description of what your research is all about and how it relates to your research. This was a very powerful image, and I really liked it. In terms of our rubric, what are some of the successes that you see in this particular image?
Simple.
What is?
Simple.
It is. It's very simple. It's a landscape. There's not too much going on here.
There is the contrast of the color. It is what, and to see the beauty of the land, because we've got like this kind of lake.
Yep.
And I believe it is the fungi. It is
Yep.
the things, and maybe you would try to. I did not read that, okay, but I believe he tried to make us aware about the kind of contrast in this land.
Yeah. And how do you feel when you look at it? What feelings?
Peaceful.
Very peaceful.
Yeah.
Everyone loves green space and blue space. Psychologically, we love that, right? Yeah. So it's very effective. And then the description of the research is very interesting and very intentional. I'm just going to get closer so I can read it. So this is a photo that's taken with a drone. So it's also from a perspective that we don't have every day, which makes it unexpected, right? So it's almost a vertical view of the Bay of Fundy, something everyone knows about, but you don't often see it from this perspective. So it's a picture of dike lands, and there's a bit of historical context. This was created by Acadians in the 1600s. Here's the unexpected bit, though. Oddly, she says, the Acadian Nelson sparrow, which has long been considered a salt marsh specialist, successfully breeds in these dike lands, human-made dike lands. For my research, I wanted to learn more about why Nelson sparrows are breeding in human-made dike lands and what are the consequences of this novel behavior. So again, this is selected for a very particular purpose. It's simple, it elicits an affective response. The description of the research conveys something unexpected, and this whole thing is quite sticky. I remember this very well. And I like how she comes up with a snappy title too, Searching for a Needle in a Haystack. I have a couple of other examples, but I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm just going to skip ahead to one more. That one. What makes that a successful image? Or were the judges wrong?
I mean, blocking up people's faces is a pretty visceral thing to do,
Yeah.
like just inherently.
Yeah. So what kind of emotional response do you have to that?
Like almost alarm.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, could you repeat?
So almost alarm.
Alarm. Okay. No, for me, I don't know if I can. It is like, when I see something like that, I'm thinking that it would like to preserve the anonymous people in the photo, and for me, make that we are all the same.
Okay.
We are all the same, man, woman, we are all the same. It is something like that I'm perceiving the things.
Interesting. Are there men in this photo?
I don't know really, but I believe there is some man, and it is the. But maybe there is a history behind that. That's makes the image powerful, but I don't know the history.
Yeah. What's the consensus in the room? What kind of, someone over here, what's your emotional response to this? Erasure of your identity prompts a lot of questions, though, whether it's alarm or it's an anonymization. It raises, like it draws you in. You wonder why. Why are these people, why do they have their personalities erased? When you read the description, you learn that this is a picture from a Stasi file, a police file in socialist East Germany. And this was collected it was information collected by women whose private sex lives were under surveillance. Either they were engaging in prostitution or they were believed to be engaging in prostitution of some kind. And so the Stasi, the Ministerium für Staatssicherheit, everything in German sounds terrifying, the Stasi had a vested interest in turning sexually permissive women into secret police informants. That's the unexpected part. You might think that these are mugshots, just criminals at the front end, or these are people under surveillance, or this is maybe anonymized for some reason, but these are people who are being manipulated and turned into police informants. So it's an interesting story, right? So it narrates something, and you can imagine then, you go back, I find myself pulled back to the photograph where I imagine people's faces in their lives. How did they get manipulated into this position of being informant for the Ministerium für Staatssicherheit? Yeah.
I think it speaks to authorship in some ways too. So the construction of this collage and the choice to anonymize it says something about the creator of it, right? About
Yes.
why they made those choices, right? So I think that's part of the story as well, is like, where does it come from? What's the motivation for these things?
Definitely.
I believe they share the same history then. These people, they should share the same history. That's why you bring them all together and make them anonymous. And as you said, maybe it is the first thing we have, it is like crime or things like that. But you can go deeper, you know what I mean? But I don't know.
Yeah, and find that unexpected part of the story.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, so this is what we want to accomplish with the Images of Research competition. And for those of you who are going to participate this year, this is how we go about selecting our winners. Of course, the rubric is very important, but we have criteria kind of lined up in a very formal way. So it, of course, has to be a beautiful image of research, or at least compelling and well-framed in some way, aesthetic appeal. Creativity behind the selection or the creation of the image is very important, and the degree to which the image actually showcases your own research program, not just an interesting photograph off the street. This has to be related to knowledge production at the end of the day. And then, of course, we look at the kind of script that you attach to it, because an image may be worth 1,000 words, but we'll give you 200 words to help us understand exactly what your research is about.
And if you win, $500.
And you can win $500 if you do a good enough job.
Last year it was not 1,000? No,
Was it
2 years ago?
$1,000 last year? No, I would never agree to that. Just kidding. It'll be $500.
That's right.
So thank you, everyone. Are there any questions or, yeah? Yes.
Yeah, my question is about, I kind of struggle with my research and translating this into an image because it's an intervention that has to do with people living with obesity. So last year I wanted to put in, but I struggled with what kind of an idea to come up with. Then again, this year is here, and I'm still struggling. So I don't know if you have maybe 1 or 2 tips for that kind of a research that has to do with people, but you can't really show people's faces. There's a limit to what one can do. So,
Can you show people engaged in the behavior that you're studying?
okay.
Like without showing their actual faces, but you can show them in action, kind of doing it? Or is there something that represents the activity that you're studying? Is there something that metaphorically communicates what it is you're studying?
So basically, we intend to use self-compassion, which is a psychological construct, to help people that want to lose weight.
Okay.
So that's the summary, and so getting self-compassion, which is not something tangible,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of struggling with.
I understand why you would struggle with it. That's very, very challenging. I guess you would have to think metaphorically about what's a story you can tell about the people who are trying to lose weight, and what do they need by way of compassion? How is that communicated to them? And think of an image that tells a story of like one person's journey that is an exemplar of the research that you're doing. That's often a really good way to pull people in. Is there any advice from the crowd? Anyone else have any advice for?
I was just going to add that you can stage things too.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So you can stage things for these images. They don't have to be your participants. They don't, right? So, yeah. there is the potential to do things like that.
Yes.
Right after, yeah. So, hi everyone, Matt Rogers. I'm from the Faculty of Education, but I'm in the role of acting Associate Dean in the School of Graduate Studies, working with Sasha for this year as well. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3-minute thesis competition that we are holding here at UNB as part of the Graduate Research Conference on March 28th. How many of you in here have heard of this competition before? You've heard about it? Anybody participate before?
I judged one.
You judged one? Yeah. Was it at UNB? Was it part of the? Was it a part
I think I
of the
judged the
region?
first one here.
Okay, very interesting. So I want to get a sense of what you all kind of understand. Maybe the people who haven't been involved with it before. What do you think it's about? What do you think you have to do? Anything else?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Summarize the entire 4 years in 3 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. That's the key point to it, right? So we have to get it down to a very strict timeline, right? And I'm involved, for the last couple of years, I was involved with a 48-hour film competition here in Fredericton. And it's a very similar kind of structure that you have these constraints, right? Creative constraints put around what you have to do. And with a 48-hour film festival, you have to do it all on the weekend and get it in and submit it, have a time limit, and therefore you have to work towards it. Very similar here. You have to work within these creative constraints in a very kind of particular way, right? You were going to say something?
I would also say, like, I don't know, your audience probably isn't as specialized. Like, you need to get it more in layman's terms.
Exactly, right? So the idea with the 3-minute thesis is about knowledge mobilization, is about communication, and is about accessibility. So as you're preparing for this, you want to think, and that takes the mastery, as you pointed out, right? To be able to explain it in a way like that, you need to be able to understand it in a way that can be communicated to others. So what I'm going to do right now, I have a couple examples of past finalists from 3-minute thesis competitions that I'll show to you at the end, but I'll go through and give you kind of the overview and the timeline for what we're doing for the competition here in Fredericton. So we're partnering with the Graduate Student Association to pull this together. So they will have information to share with you, and you'll get things coming out from us at SGS as well. And just broader information about the competition. So over 900 institutions from 85 countries have held these competitions all over the world. It's recognized all over the world in various different ways. There's different kind of setup about how these run in different contexts, but in Canada there are local competitions, which is what we'll be holding, then a regional competition, and then a national competition that's held by the Canadian Association of Graduate Studies. So CAGS is the acronym if you see it here in a little bit. And again, like we said, it's about boiling your research down to an accessible presentation that can be communicated to a general audience. So that's really key to this work. The rules, so you can only have one static slide, means you cannot have any video or movement or sound on that slide while you're presenting. You can't have any props or anything else. It's just your voice, your presentation, you being there, and the slide. And it has to be provided in spoken word. It can't be poetry, music, none of these. It has to be an oration of the work. And you might see in the examples a little bit later that people work comedy or work different things into their presentations as a way to bring people in or to engage their audience, but it has to be a spoken word presentation. One of the rules too is that as soon as the presenter, I think they say when the presenter starts their presentation through movement or speech. So at the presentation, if I'm at the desk and ready and I start moving, then the presentation starts, right? So the timer goes, and it has to be all done within 3 minutes. And if the presentation goes beyond the 3 minutes, the person is disqualified from the competition. So very important, 3-minute in the title, remember that. In Fredericton, so registration for this is open now. Did any of you get the email from me with the ask? Okay, so you would have seen it there. We're going to send another blast out for students in the next little while to get registered. The February 18th workshop. We're going to hold 2 workshops for this time around. That one's going to be a panel presentation where people can provide kind of experience, background, or information related to communication of research, knowledge mobilization, experiences like that, and the importance of accessibility and communicating to audiences that don't usually engage with research. These kind of things will be at that first presentation. By February 24th, students will have an opportunity to submit a self-recorded video of a draft of their 3-minute thesis presentation. And then I have a number of mentors signed up to provide feedback to students on that recording. So I'll have a feedback form for all of the people who are acting as mentors, and then students will get that feedback back before the March 17th workshop, where students will have a chance to present their 3-minute thesis presentation, kind of like a trial run. And we'll have judges, or not judges, but mentors there to give feedback on the in-person sessions. So there's 2 opportunities for mentorship through this project right now. And registration deadline, is about a week before the final workshop. Just for numbers for whenever we are doing that workshop, we'll have to know how many people are registered for it. And then the week following that, March 28th, the afternoon of the conference, on the second day of the conference, will be when the final competition is held, and we'll have a number of judges, both from the institution and outside the institution, who will be looking at your work. I'll answer questions. I just want to go through this first. Yeah. So we're holding the local competition. Kevin confirmed these numbers for me the other day. So
All right.
he pulled out the big checks.
Did he?
Yeah, and so we have the big checks to give winning at the local competition. So first prize is 1,000, second is 500, and third is 350. And I'll present some of the judging criteria here for you, but at that first workshop, we'll be going over this in a little bit more detail. So kind of the main criteria is comprehension and content, and then engagement and communication, the same kind of things we talked about already, right? Okay, so I just want to get through so we have time for the video. Sorry, I'll go, if you want to take pictures of the criteria, I'll go back to them at the end for you. So we are having the competition here March 28th. The Eastern Regional 3MT competition is at Memorial University, and that is the 10th of June. And to my understanding right now, the winner of the local competition is invited to that one. And then the winner, or the top 3 finalists ranked from the Eastern region, will advance to the national one, and that's in the summer, November 6th, 2025. So next fall would be the national competition. Yep.
Just very close to his question. I've also just started my graduate studies, so and then I don't have any kind of data or anything else. I'm just beginning now.
Yeah.
So,
do you have a research program mapped out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe the nature of this is around works in progress as well. So where you are in your program, I think can be reflected in the work that you present, right? So it could be a small part, it could be connected to the rationale for the work, proposal work, I think could fit into this without necessarily having all your data. That's my understanding as well. Yeah. I've never done this before, so this is all new to me as well.
Well, and you can always just go to it this year, see
Yeah.
what's going on, learn about what's going on at the university, enjoy the event, and then apply next year.
Yeah.
Or register next year.
Yeah. But as I said, the workshop's open for everyone too. If you want to be a part of those discussions, feel free to register for it. But do register just so I can get the information to you. So I'm going to share the 3-minute videos. There's about 4 minutes to each clip, so it takes a little bit of extra time than 3. But afterwards, I'll put the stuff back up while we're asking questions or anything too, so you can have the criteria for the judges. Okay, so here's the first one. Actually, this one's 2:55, it's shorter.
Name one product or industry that Canada is famous for. I know many Canadians would tend to think of the oil sands industry, but I happen to be a foodie, so my first thought, Poutine, that delicious bowl of savory indulgence served with fried potatoes, cheese curds, and gravy. Mmm. You might be surprised to know that the journey of a potato from the field until it becomes your bowl of poutine is quite similar to the journey of bitumen from an oil sands mine until it reaches your vehicle as fuel. The potato starts off as a humble lump of carbohydrates a few feet beneath the ground, covered with dirt and impurities. Analogously, bitumen is a black, tarry deposit situated underground. It can be mined and further processed into a rich source of carbon or energy. I'd like you all to imagine a processing facility located near a potato field where the harvested potatoes are washed, dried, and partially processed so that they can be preserved until they reach the restaurants near you. A similar approach for bitumen is being explored as part of my research project. This technology is called partial upgrading or field upgrading. Bitumen by its very nature is a thick, viscous liquid like the cheese curds or the gravy used in poutine. Partial upgrading aims to improve the quality of bitumen so that it becomes more flowable and can be transported easily through pipelines to refineries for the final processing. Now, consuming too much of poutine can clog your arteries. Even bitumen has some bulky organic compounds, and these culprits are responsible for blocking those pipelines. My research involves identifying these compounds using some spectroscopic tools. I will then be using some catalysts, temperature, and pressure to break them down into more desirable compounds so that the viscous bitumen becomes free-flowing oil. The Canadian oil sands industry has a notorious reputation for its heavy carbon footprint. It's also not a secret that building newer pipelines is not the most sustainable solution in the long run. Partial upgrading aims to eliminate the need to use a diluting chemical, which in turn increases the existing pipeline capacity by up to 30%. This also results in a significant reduction in the overall greenhouse gas emissions. Thus, large-scale implementation of my research will ensure a more sustainable future for this industry and a stronger Canadian economy, just like our very strong love for poutine. Thank you.
Okay, so what did you notice? What can you pull out of that presentation? What kind of principles? Right.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you wanted to?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I'm in chemical engineering, so like I would just presume that like she did a good job of introducing a subject that might be kind of relatively boring other ways, like trying to engage an audience. So like, relating to the poutine, processing potatoes was a good way of getting in there.
Yeah, and metaphor, right? Like comparing it to something that is understandable, right? Or something that people can access, right? And making those comparisons. I think that was a strong example of that, right? And the use of comedy as well.
One thing I really liked about is comparing that oil with the food. So everybody eats food and everybody is concerned with the, quality and the food.
That's right.
So I think through that she captured the attention of the entire audience.
That's right. Yeah, something that people can relate to, right? And latch on to. Started there, and then brought them in with that metaphor and that comparison to something that was more complicated to understand, right? And I think it was a mastery in my mind to think about that for a 3-minute example. Any other ideas? Yeah.
So in terms of emotion, I like how she made us feel good about the oil industry in Alberta. That was very good. She lured us in with the poutine and then made us feel like this will reduce
Maybe
our...
there was a tonal mismatch, but...
No, but like a 30% reduction in greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
I paid attention to that.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought she was in because you talk about chemical, but I thought she was in business. When the way she's talking in the business domain, like selling something or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when he said chemical, I said, oh yeah, I did not thought about. Yeah, the people who sales, they know how to, they master the communication.
Mm-hmm. Any other reflections or thoughts about it before we go to the second one? Going to do the same kind of exercise after with the next one too. And I apologize in advance if there's a shark that shows up on the screen.
Here in Canada, we have access to pretty clean water. Yet the water you and I drink can still contain trace amounts of pharmaceuticals and personal care products, which can slip past our water treatment plants and have the potential to be harmful if consumed in large enough quantities. So what can we do about these harmful chemicals? And are there better ways to treat contaminated water around the world? Well, one solution to this problem is the photocatalyst. A photocatalyst is a special material that uses light, or photons, to activate a chemical reaction, like a catalyst, and simultaneously clean wastewater and generate electricity. But how does that work? Well, a photocatalyst is much like a roller coaster. Energy is needed to get the roller coaster cars to the very top of the ride. But once you're at the top, you have the potential energy to get you through the rest of the ride without putting in any more work. In this same way, photocatalysts can use sunlight, a free and renewable energy source, to gain enough energy to perform powerful chemical reactions that can break down even the most resilient and nasty pollutants in our wastewater. But let's take this analogy one step further. What if we attach electrical generators to our roller coaster cars? Then we could recover some of the energy we spent getting up the ride in the first place. While that might not be efficient for a real roller coaster, photocatalysts have a sort of built-in generator where electricity is naturally produced when sunlight is used to break down these pollutants. And so as a chemical engineering researcher, I'm committed to designing better and more efficient chemical roller coasters. As a first step, this past year, I've worked with local breweries to successfully use their wastewater for photocatalysis. This means that for the first time using this principle, we were able to convert beer wastewater back into clean water and generate electricity in the process. So therefore, I'd like to thank all you drinkers out there for making this possible for me. Thank you. You know who you are. But we don't want to stop there. If we can integrate this idea with existing wastewater treatment facilities and technologies, then we can not only improve the quality of our drinking water, but also get energy back in return. Taking this concept even further, a polluted water source anywhere in the world has the potential to become a power generator. This is an example of the possibilities when we apply scientific principles to solve real-world problems, so that people all over the world can not only have access to clean water, but also the freedom to drink, but responsibly. Thank you.
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords.
That's a good pitch too.
Yeah, 4 chords. Yeah. So what did you notice about that one? What can you compare things, contrast things a little bit between the first one?
It is a TED guy.
A TED Talk, TED style. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking the Apple, the launches of the.
Yeah, as well as Steve Jobs when it is like.
Anything else? Yeah.
I honestly thought his slide was really ugly, but his presentation was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like it too.
So what was wrong with the slide for you?
It was just a lot of details, and I was like, you either had to listen to him or parse the slide, and I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Did you notice the slide from the first one? It was up in the top corner. We didn't talk about it last time, but they were images, right? From like the same you would be doing for images of research. I think it was a collage of 3 that related to what she was presenting.
It was simple.
On. Yeah, it was simple. Yeah. Not distracting. I think that's a good way to think about it. What else did you notice about that one? Did the metaphor work?
About the photocatalyst, I feel like it is a process you must be do on to feedback about the good quality of water, but it's not the one of the element to make the water have a good quality.
Yeah. So I was lost in that a little bit. I was more lost in this one than I was in the first one, as a viewer who's not in this realm.
Right. I just happy listening and I have think about like consider about the thing he have been talking about, and I get about the solution is not. It's just one part of the element is an important element, but it's not all the process that make the water have good quality.
It's not all the research,
right?
Yeah, it's the core
It's just a part of that, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Maybe his audience. Maybe his audience, it was much more focused to chemical engineer than the previous one.
Audience,
yes.
Yeah. If it was me, I would have focused on the beer part. Right? Because that would be a different kind of audience you'd be reaching, right? So I think the audience here, the presumed audience, is different than the first one, right? I think that's just something to pick out in terms of the difference.
Points for having poutine and beer in
Yeah.
2 slides. You know, we're good.
Yeah.
We're all going to have heart attacks, but
Yeah, exactly.
we're very happy while doing it.
It will be in the third video he will show us.
Yeah, storytelling, right? You can bring people in different ways, right? These two focus on metaphor and analogy to make a quick connection for you, but there's tons of other ways. So you can be very creative. I don't want to say you all need to have an analogy to do it, but it's a good thing to think about. Yeah. Yep.
I'm just stuck in between how to attract the attention of the audience without diluting the content of my research.
Yeah.
So while I'm trying to attract the audience, the language that I should be using might entail diluting the content of my work. So how do I balance this?
So one thing I noticed in these two videos, and I'm not sure if you all noticed too, but there's a switch at some point, right? There's a switch, so there's a structure to the presentation, right? Where at the beginning, it's about the analogy, it's about bringing people in to present that kind of connection for them, but then they move to their research, right? They move in, they say, take all this into context, now here's what I'm doing. Right? So I think thinking about structure for presentations like this would be very important, right? Structure the work out the same way you would structure writing. There. Any other comments or questions about any of this? Did I sell it to you? Is it sold? Good.
Rule of thirds, here it comes. We're right near the end, but I did want to just backpedal and say about images of research that it opens for submissions on February 3rd, so the first Monday in February, and will run for the entire month. There's a site, so this presentation will be available, and you'll get a URL for it, and near the end of the YouTube, you'll see this QR code, but also the link is there. If you just go to the library website, you drill down to Research Commons and into events, you would find it, but it'll be advertised in different venues, so just wanted to put that out there. And the Speakeasy Challenge. So this is the third of these knowledge mobilization opportunities, and what it's intended to do, a little bit like the 3-minute thesis, but a little bit longer and a little bit looser, kind of the goofy cousin, maybe, of the 3MT, is to give students the opportunity to speak about their research wherever they're at in their journey. They could even just be pondering some initial questions along the way, or be along at whatever stage and want to share with an audience that is not the people they're usually talking to. So when we did this a couple of years ago, there was a room full of graduate students like yourselves who were coming from a variety of disciplines. Someone would come up and talk about a particular methodology. At the end of the talk, there would be questions about, well, it's interesting that you're using this methodology this way because we understand it in a different way. And so when we conduct this sort of methodology, this is what it looks like. And so the conversations were really quite interesting amongst people. And I thought it was quite a rich experience, on top of the fact that it just is another opportunity to get up in front of people and just get used to speaking. So when you saw particularly the last fellow speaking, the one thing that came up for me was that this is a fellow who's used to speaking in front of people. And maybe some people have a knack for it, but more often than not, it takes a lot of practice. And the only way you're going to get practice is by practicing. And so this sort of thing can be good for you long term, but recognizing that that often isn't enough, it can be good for you short term, because anybody who presents in the Speakeasy Challenge will get a $50 grocery card. So the only real challenge is to challenge yourself to show up. And you get your grocery card, off you go, and you just have another opportunity maybe to meet people. The other neat thing about it too, and that's the same with images of research, if you go to the website and you look through the entries from last year and the 2 previous years from that, you just learn so much about the research that's happening at UNB. And people that you might just know a little bit, and here they are revealing what they've been up to. So the Speakeasy can be like that too. But I wanted to talk frame it a little bit in terms of my own personal journey, my transformation through professional development. Early on in my career, every time I had to speak, and unfortunately I had to speak a lot in front of people, it felt like this. This was the guy. Everything I wanted to say, because of how nervous I was behind a brick wall. And I was constantly trying to reach behind that brick wall and bring my words over. And it was just a lot of anxiety. It wasn't something that I felt comfortable with. And I think that if I hadn't already been working here on shorter contracts, that I probably wouldn't have been hired full-time if people didn't already know me, because I was a terrible interviewer. And we all know that people who interview well, who were just put together to communicate well, more often than not get the jobs. It doesn't mean they're going to do a great job when they get the job, but it does give them a leg up, so it's something to think about. And then if you have the substance as well as the style, that can only be good things. But the thing that changed it all for me was about 5 years into my academic career, I started to play music. And being out in front of people and learning that adrenaline is actually something that you can use to propel you and to get excited with, rather than something that is short-circuiting you. So learning to ride those feelings only comes with putting yourself on the spot. The nice thing about the Speakeasy Challenge is that it's a pretty supportive kind of thing. You can come in, you can sing and dance if you want to. You can do it in whatever format would make sense. You could do it as just a question and answer with the audience, or as a conventional presentation. We're also going to be bringing in students who've been through the filmmaking workshops that we hold as part of the Research Commons, and they will be filming it and making it available for posterity. So it'll be graduate student led from the back end as well as the front end. So there is similarly a place where you can go and register for a date. They're all happening at this time, 3 o'clock in afternoons, or suggest dates potentially. And we're hoping to have a couple of these a month throughout the academic year, right up until the end. We've had a few interested parties so far, but we're definitely looking for more participation. And if you have any questions about what this might look like more specifically with what you have in mind, then I'm more than happy to field questions. And the resources that have been mentioned in all 3 presentations will be part of the YouTube video's description, and so you'll be able to go and consult that as a place to find our contact information, resources that we've alluded to as well. And so this is happening beginning in February, and Images of Research begins at the beginning of February, and then 3MT is a little bit later. And all of these things are a good lead up for the Graduate Research Conference, really, at the end of term, which will be happening in the Research Commons as well. And with that, we're at time and a little bit better. If you want to grab a snack on the way out, you're more than welcome to do that. And otherwise, thank you very much for coming out today. The next booster will be on February 13th, and we will have Mario Tiozzo, our data visualization librarian, talking about data visualization in the context of conference posters. And so one of our design people, Johnny Wood, is going to join him and talk about some of the tips for design, as well as software and technology and some of the other resources available to you on campus. So February 13th. Well, thank you very much.